After shocking the college football world, the Vanderbilt Commodores head to Lexington, Kentucky to take on Mark Stoops and the Wildcats. We are here previewing, predicting, and breaking down this game as Kentucky and Vandy get set to do battle. Hello, everyone. I'm Chris Phillips. He's Dave Shumate. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Make sure you like, subscribe, turn notifications. Check us out via podcast, wherever you get your podcast. You can also find us across all social media platforms, as well as our website, SECUnfiltered.com. This segment brought to you by our friends over at MyBookie. Guys, go to MyBookie.ag. Use promo code SECU at sign up to receive a special welcome offer on your first deposit. That's MyBookie.ag, promo code SECU to get your special welcome offer today. Kentucky and Vanderbilt do battle at Kroger Field. The Cats coming off the bye and Vandy coming off one of the most historic wins in SEC history. We are here previewing, predicting, and breaking down this game. I am Chris Phillips. Helping me do so, my good friend, Dave Shumate. Dave, what's going on, my man? Appreciate you taking the time and excited to break down this game with you.
Yeah, the game in Lexington off Kentucky's bye week's getting a little juicier now. The old SEC network, Cole Kubelik, who is that? Tom Hart, Jordan Rogers normally on that call at 7:45. I mean, like you mentioned, line 14, point total 45.5. This big game for both teams here, though, really now, from a bowl situation kind of standpoint. Both teams looking at it like, all right, we're both coming off. Both these teams are coming off big wins. And Kentucky was the bye, got the Ole Miss game, and then Vandy obviously against Alabama. Vandy could be 2-0 in league play, arguably. And help me, you talked about a little bit off air. There's got to be no one more fired up than Mark Stoops this week. His job's gotten a lot easier with Vanderbilt beating Alabama. His guys no longer overlook them. If they do, I don't even know if I blame Mark Stoops. I don't know what else you could do to get your team more focused if they aren't ready to play Vanderbilt this week. Another chance for Kentucky to only – I mean, they put two back-to-back performances together. I mean, against Georgia, I know it was in a loss. Obviously, the win against Ole Miss. Both these teams have been playing pretty good for the past 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah, Dave, to your point, again, when you – and we'll get into it more in depth in a second, but it's a different challenge for each of these two teams in regards to how you respond and what type of effort you put out there on Saturday night. Again, Saturday night, 7:45 p.m. Eastern time kickoff. Dave, you mentioned it on the SEC network. This game taking place in Lexington at Kroger Field. Again, the latest spread, Dave, I've seen, Kentucky, a 14-point favorite in this ballgame. The over-under set at 46 total points. Kentucky leads the all-time series 49-43-4. And the last meeting, of course, last year, Kentucky won this ballgame, Dave, by a final score of 45-28. So as we dive into the matchup, again, Dave, you mentioned it. There's nobody happier than Mark Stoops because of the simple fact that if you can't get your team's attention now and focus on the opponent after what they just did a few days ago, then I don't know what to tell you. But maybe even, and I would say, Dave, the greater challenge. You know, it's one thing, like, let's take Alabama, for example, as they try to respond from their loss. You got no problems in the facility getting guys motivated, fired up. Dave, you're itching to get back on the field. You can't wait to get back out there and get another rep and play another quarter and play another game. And because you're only as good as your last performance, right? So you can't wait to get out there. You're itching to get out and put your best foot forward. Vanderbilt's guys might still be on Broadway. Like, I don't know if what they're doing. And I know I'm over-exaggerating, but the challenge for Clark Lee, Dave, this week, this is very, very, very unfamiliar territory for the Vanderbilt Commodores, right? They say act like you've been there before. Vandy has not been here before, right? So,
I mean, nobody that's ever played in the Vanderbilt football program ever has ever been in this situation.
Clark Lee can't tell them, hey, how we respond to the biggest win, you could argue, in program history. So, Dave, the question I have for Vanderbilt, how do they respond to the monumental upset, right? That is the big thing. How do they approach this game against Kentucky? I mean, I would expect they'll be locked in, but that is the challenge Clark Lee and company face in that building, is making sure, hey, guys, 24-hour rule, Bama win was great. We got to lock in, because if we don't, Kentucky's going to clean our clock on Saturday night.
Oh, no, I mean, absolutely. I mean, Clark Lee could literally just look across the sideline from this past Saturday. I mean, hell, maybe even call Kalen DeBoer and ask, what did you do wrong? How could we not get
The mousetraps didn't work, Dave. The mousetraps are a no.
And sometimes the coaches get a lot. I mean, at some point you can only do so much except remind them like consistently over. And at some point it goes on the players. But I mean, he can just go use Alabama as an example. Like, hey guys, I mean, I think we outplayed them on Saturday for sure for 60 minutes. But let's be honest, they were probably fat and happy off their Georgia win. That is the exact same situation we are going into. We're going on the road. They came here. We're coming off one of our biggest win in program history for sure. They're coming off their coach's first year biggest win against Georgia. Again, massive win for Alabama. They came in, guys, just look across who we played last week. Again, I don't think we beat them because they overlooked us because I think we prepared well. But if we don't prepare well again, so I mean, if I was him yesterday, if we don't start preparing well today on Sunday all the way through Thursday and when we're wrapping up Friday, we're going to leave Lexington with a loss. Because I'll be honest with you, Kentucky's defense is better than Alabama's. They actually have a guy on the interior that can disrupt that triple option side. If Deion Walker plays with a high motor, he's going to be tough to defend against again. I mean, give Tim back and then credit. I'm sure they'll have their own game plan as well. They had a phenomenal game plan this week. But again, it's a different challenge this week. And it's wild to say that you're like, yeah, we're probably playing a better defense this week than we played last week. And we played that Crimson team who has the numerals on their helmets.
Dave, do you bring up the great point? Diego Pavia, the legend in Nashville. His legend status is reached heights that I don't think any of us knew was possible. That man he loves playing against teams. The game plan for Vandy should be tell him that Kentucky is located in the state of Alabama.
It's in the Yellowhammer State.
Yeah, tell him that it's Lexington, Alabama somehow, some way, and he'll go out there and play his best game. But in all seriousness, Dave, the chess match, the key matchup in this game, how does Kentucky stop Diego Pavia? And can Diego Pavia turn in another one of those great performances like he had on Saturday? You mentioned it. I know we talked about it earlier, or even in the Sunday show. We've talked about it all week thus far. Deion Walker on the interior can be the difference maker. And to your point, right now, Kentucky's got a better defense than Alabama at all three levels. I think they do. And we were high on the Kentucky defense in the preseason. I know I was. I know you were. Yeah. And what we've seen, that performance against Ole Miss, it only strengthens that belief in what they are and what they can be. That is going to be a fascinating matchup, Dave, because I think still, I want to see like how long can Diego Pavia keep this going? I'm not going to doubt the kid, but this is going to be one of his stiffest tests, if not his stiffest test yet, going up against a really salty Kentucky defense. Yeah,
I mean, we mentioned it for two reasons. Again, you're bouncing back from being the greatest Vanderbilt player of all time. You're getting NIL deals this week. He stated himself, this is a life-changing game for a lot of people on this team. How do you overcome that 6 days later to go play a really good Kentucky defense? Like we said, it's better. Now for Kentucky and Brad White and this will be, again, they're a unique prep a little bit from a standpoint. We talked about it on Sunday Funday, how you got to give Clark Lee credit for, again, at Vanderbilt, you can't go run the same offenses, these spread out play in space type offenses that everyone else does because you don't have the personnel they do. So you got to go be unique and be like, man, for a lack of a better term, they're a bitch to go prepare for each week. And I think Alabama learned that the hard way. You throw some adjustments, wrinkles in that Tim Beck and them did in the middle of the game. And it's tough. I think they were in unbalanced formation. I saw someone said like 20-30% of their plays and they'd motion over. So I think they added a bunch. They are hard to prepare for. Again, I think this is a little off topic, but again, you don't know how long Tim Beck's going to be at Vanderbilt. So in the offseason, you don't want to factor in something like this once a week. But I know Georgia used to when Paul Johnson was there at Georgia Tech. Once a week, they prepare just because you don't see that. My point being, college teams in general. I mean, after high school, you run some triple option if you don't have athletes. That's usually why you do it, to make it even. But you don't see it a lot in major college football. So you got to train your team's brain to be a little different. Like, hey, dude, like you have to play assignment football. You're not Deion. You're not going to go rack up a bunch of TFLs this week, brother. You may if he keeps it or he gives it, depending on who you have. But you have to stay on your man, dude. You got to stay eye discipline. That's something. Go watch the Alabama tape. You can learn something from them. It's got to be probably a pretty fun prep, though, if you're Brad White and Mark Stoops. You get to go do something. Hey, can you hold them to under 33 points offensively? Something Alabama couldn't do. And hell, if you're Mark Stoops in Kentucky, you got to prepare offensively. If you're Bush Hampton and Brock Winter, you may not get a lot of possessions. You got to take advantage, and you got to have your game plans when you get the ball offensively are probably going to be a little different now when you play Vanderbilt because you're like, yeah, we're not going to get the ball much, so we got to go take advantage of them. And I think Mark Stoops brought up a great point today on his press conference. Got to start fast. If you can get Vanderbilt down and make them play back, and Diego Pavia is having to go drop back and pass, he gets a little uncomfortable. I know he only had 4 incompletions against Alabama, but he threw when he wanted to throw. If you force him to throw when he doesn't want to, or it's obvious passing downs, I think things would be a little different.
That's a great point, Dave, because Vanderbilt in that game against Bama, they led from start to finish. So they were never playing behind the 8 ball, if you will. I think that's a great point for Kentucky. If they can jump out in this game, a couple scores, Vandy's going to have to play a game they just don't want to play, bottom line. And they're probably not best at, if you will. When it comes to the Kentucky offense, Dave, Chip Traynum, the latest update on him, there's been a setback. It sounds like he might be out for the year. So I'm curious if Brock Vandagriff, how much of are we generating running game with Brock Vandagriff? Are we finding Dane Key down the field? He was really big in that game against Ole Miss. I think he's kind of become his favorite target. I've always talked highly of the wide receivers in Lexington, Barryon Brown, Dane Key, Macklin as well. Their tight end, Dingle. They've got weapons on the offensive side, but what does it look like for Kentucky? Do they have the offense where they can pull away? Do they have the offense where they can get off, Dave, with that quick start and get up a couple scores? How much quarterback running game? We're talking about Diego Pavia and his running ability. How much quarterback run game do we see from Brock Vandagriff? I'm really curious, Bush Hamden, what the attack is on the offensive side of the football for Kentucky, because as great as the Ole Miss game was, Dave, I think it's still a work in progress when it comes to that side of the ball for the Cats.
Yeah, you're right. If you go back and watch that Ole Miss game, Ole Miss's defense really wasn't bad, and that went outside of the few penalties they got to end the half and extended drives. Ended up getting a touchdown for Dane Key, I believe, at the end of that half over Trey Amos to kind of give Kentucky some life. They were up at halftime. But really, outside of that and that big 4th and 7, the thing Kentucky did well is they really didn't get behind in the chains and converted a bunch of third downs. They weren't overly explosive. They had to make the plays they had to do. Again, I don't think Vanderbilt's defense is on the same level of Ole Miss, so I would expect a little more success. But it looks like, let's be honest too, we talk about the run game. They run Brock Vandagriff more. Do they ride with Gavin Wimsatt? Do we see this as kind of like a duo quarterback deal like they did in Oxford? Do we see hey, it may be tipping off what we're about to do, but yeah, we're going to run with Gavin Wimsatt when he's in the game in some short yardage situations. And if you creep in, bring the numbers in the box, we may go over the top because I think we do have some speed. And as you mentioned, Jordan Dingle at the tight end spot as well.
Yeah, I think Kentucky's got enough speed on the outside to give Vandy some problems. I do. But again, the chess match between Hamden and Clark Lee and what Clark Lee has done with that defense and the entire football team, that's going to be one I'm really excited. And again, I think maybe the personnel is, and I know they weren't great against Bama. Bama had a pretty solid day offensively, scored almost every drive except the pick 6, and I think there was one other one they didn't. But either way, Bama.
Well, the pick 6 dropped by Ryan Williams and then the strip fumble.
Yeah, it wasn't for Bama didn't lose that game for because of a lack of offense. They lost it because of the defense, obviously. So I think if you're Kentucky, you probably feel like, hey, we're going to be able to score, boys. We just got to get stops. And we need to get ahead, make Vandy play a game they're not comfortable with, make Diego Pavia the unflusterable, if that's a word, player, make him flustered, get him in some positions, again, maybe he's not comfortable with. So I do think it comes down to Brad White, the Kentucky defense. Dave, that being said, let's dive into our predictions for this one. I'll let you start. Commodores coming off of upsetting the number 1 team in college football, but Kentucky is the 2-touchdown favorite. Who you taking on Saturday night in Lexington?
Man, I hate to be this guy, but just knowing how hard Clark Lee's job's going to be this week to get them to come back down. And again, I'm sure he's going to do as good of a job as possible. This is almost like an impossible task to get them to come down from this much, where the national media is going to be there. You're going to hear people talking about this Kentucky Vanderbilt game. And as they should. This is a big game for both teams to get bowl eligible. I just think Kentucky coming off the bye week, they're at home. Kentucky's built some confidence, I think, over their last 2 games, over the last 3 weeks, including the bye against Georgia. I know it was a loss, but they had some things they could take from it, especially defensively. Ole Miss game speaks for itself. They won. I just think Brad White, Mark Stoops, and them are going to have a good game plan. I think the difference maker is Kentucky is better on defense than Alabama is right now. I really don't – outside if you're just looking at the brand, that may be some bold prediction, but I really don't think it is. They're better up front defensively across the board. Guys like J.J. Weaver, Deion Walker, Kendrick Gilbert. I mean, you got Jamon Dumas-Johnson, De'Aaron Jackson, who led them in tackles last year. Yeah, like they're better in the secondary than Alabama is right now. And interesting will be is Maxwell Hairston back now. I don't know if this will be the game that he's really impactful because Vanderbilt, I think, is going to try to play keep away again. But I don't think because of guys like Deion Walker, the interior of the defensive line, they're going to be able to have the success. And I think a lot of that was Alabama's scheme. I think Mark Stoops, Brad White, a little bit better defensive minds than Alabama has right now, or at least going into this Vanderbilt game. They kind of have the cheat sheet a little bit. They're not going to be taking this for granted again. They have every piece of ammo in the world to get their team focused for this game. I think this is Kentucky's real shot to get back. You know what? Alabama couldn't get it done, but this is going to be more than just a regular old win over Vanderbilt if we come out in here and get it. I think the offense for Kentucky, again, I think the problem with Alabama last week, would they run 45, 46 offensive plays? It wasn't many. There wasn't much. In the big advantage that even Helen Keller could tell you Alabama had over Vanderbilt. Personnel and depth advantages over Vanderbilt. When you only run 45 offensive plays, and it's not the offense's fault. This is time of possession on the defense. You don't get to get into their defensive depth. 45 plays, those guys are like, we barely played the defense. I think Kentucky's going to kind of try to wear them down, play a little ball control. I think at the end of the day, I feel pretty good about Kentucky heading into this. If I'm Mark Stoops, I'm fired up. Like, hell yeah, they beat Vanderbilt. They beat Alabama. They have my team's attention. I think they could come down, play a little, or come in, play a little down at Kroger Field. We just got to get off to a fast start. If we can keep them playing catch up the whole time, something Alabama didn't do, they get plays into the favor of Kentucky. I think Kentucky wins this game, and it would not shock me if they cover. With that being said, though, I'm gonna go Kentucky wins this game. I'm gonna go 28-13 Kentucky. I think they can cover. I think they barely
win
cover.
And the cover for the Cats in Lexington.
I was going to go under the cover, and then I said it last minute. It was a game time decision right there, CP. I changed it. 28-13 Cats.
It's not a bad pick, Dave. Not a bad pick. You know, to your point, catching the attention, you mentioned like Mark Stoops and the job, how his job got easier. I mean, Dave, we've seen videos of like Jackson Dart in the locker room watching, you know, the end of the Vandy Bama game on their phones, like while they're celebrating
in the middle of his post-game press
conference.
Right,
watching.
How many timeouts does Alabama have?
Yeah, I mean, like everybody was paying attention to this, watching this. So, you know, Kentucky's team, obviously, and Mark Stoops, like you said, he doesn't have to tell his guys what happened. This one is interesting. Man, college football has been fun this year, Dave. It has been so unpredictable, so wacky. Who would have ever seen Vandy beating Bama? I do agree with you. The great challenge that Clark Lee has is, will his team handle it the right way? That is the big question. That is the big concern, because how is, to the point, Dave, how are the Vandy guys not reading their press clippings right now? How are they not walking around campus like kings and feeling good about themselves and patting themselves on the back? Are they worried about the right things and concerned with the right things? You know, I'm just making a statement. I saw Diego Pavia on Monday, time of us recording this, you know, advertising his NIL opportunities and advertising. I'm open for business. Like, is the focus where it needs to be across the board, right? Is everybody locked? Are we still? Here's the best way I can put it, Dave. Is Vandy looking ahead to Kentucky, or are they still looking back at Alabama? Like, you know what I mean? Are they just going to live in week 6 all year? Or have we turned the page, right? Have we turned the page to what's in front of us? I think Vandy has, Dave. I'm going to roll with Diego Pavia. I'm rolling with the legend that is Pavia. I think
you're not just.
I don't know what it is, man. Listen, I don't know what it is. At some point, the flame is going to burn out. I don't trust Kentucky either, though. Now, I will say this: Kroger Field, difficult place to play at night. Difficult place to play at night. It is. What are the Cats coming out of the bye week? Like, even after the win against Ole Miss, Dave, I don't know what to make of Kentucky at this point. I really don't. I think Clark Lee is going to have a good defensive game plan dialed up. I think Kentucky, I still don't trust them offensively to move the football consistently enough. To your point, the key for Vandy is to get off to a good start. If they fall behind, if they fall down 2 scores, I don't see them being able to withstand that. Don't think that's a game they want to play.
Well, that's a game. That's where I think you tell me if I'm wrong here, Steve. That's where I think Kentucky adjusts if they got up 2 scores and lets everything go in front of them and be like, dude, y'all try to play catch up at this point.
Right.
So you're not going to have enough time.
Right. And I don't think that happens. I think Vandy's locked in. I think Diego Pavia rallies the troops. I think he's going to get everybody in that, when you got a gamer like Vandy's got at quarterback, it changes everything, man. I think Pavia is a guy that can raise the level of play around
Mexico
him.
State CP lost that game the next week after they beat Auburn last year. Let's see.
They very well may have. They very well may have.
So you're rolling with the Cats. Let's see. All right. Anyway.
Rolling with the Dores.
Sorry, the Dores. Sorry, you're rolling with the Dores. Yeah. Oh, no. They got the 3-point win against Jack State. They lost in the Conference USA Championship the next week. That's what it was. No, so they won the next week.
That being said, Dave, I'm going to ride this Diego Pavia magic for one more week. We'll see. Well, I mean, listen, we might keep.
I'm the lone soldier getting off at the Lexington.
We're going to keep this thing rolling. I know they're 14 points. Listen, at minimum, I'm taking Vandy plus 14 for sure. But you know what? I'm going a step further. Give me Vanderbilt 27, Kentucky 23. I'm locking it in. Dave, you almost changed my pick, Dave. I'm not going to lie to you. Hearing you break it down, you almost changed my pick. But, Dave, what did I tell you after week 6? I'm trying to think more outside of the box. I'm trying to think more.
I'm looking at the Vandy schedule here. So you're going to stay on this. I'm trying to predict when you may get – well, I'm banking the next week you probably get off the station. So Ball State at home after Kentucky. I'm assuming you'll stay on it then. And then they make the trip. Then they host the Texas Longhorns.
Yeah, Texas will be tough. But again,
this week, baby, he's chewing it.
I think Clark Lee is going to have his guys' attention. I love what he's built in Nashville. I'm riding that Diego Pavia train, man. Expect the unexpected. Think outside of the box. That's the theme of this college football season. And so I think Vanderbilt finds a way to go into Lexington and get the W. We shall see. Guys, you agree with me? Do you disagree? Who you rolling with? Vanderbilt and Kentucky do battle on Saturday night at Kroger Field. Guys, this can do all for us. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Again, make sure you like, subscribe, turn on notifications. Check us out via podcast. Wherever you get those, you can also find us across all social media platforms as well as our website, SECUnfiltered.com. For Dave Shumate, I'm Chris Phillips. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in, and we'll catch you on the other side.